I played one of the nicest queenless middle game positions I have ever played in my life. This is round 2 of the Kreutz Creek Quads in York, or near York, Pennsylvania, by the York Chess Club. It's game in 40, delay 5, and this is a no engine recap until the very end of this video. My opponent this round, I played him 4 times before. I won 1 game and lost 3, and drew 3 games. So I have a +1 record. I've had 3 blacks against him and 1 white. Oh wait, no, I've had 2 whites against him and 2 blacks. This is my 3rd black against him, and it's time for me to strike again, and I'm going to beat this dude one more time. He played d4, I played d6. I also beat him the last time we played, so I think it's like draw, draw, draw. Oh no, it's a draw, draw, win, draw, and now this is our 5th game. So I played d6. So the last 2 times I played against him. So one time I played c6, one time I played c5. Both of them were draws. And then now I'm playing d6. Over the course, we played 5 different openings across 5 games. Yeah. So now I played f6, and what he used to be a perk player. So now as an knight c3, like, oh man, am I gonna go g6 and play bishop g7 and play an actual perk, or am I gonna play d6 g6? No, I just said the same thing twice. I said, am I gonna play an actual perk, or am I gonna play g6 d6? No, I'm gonna say d6 and e5, and this is what I played. So I played the Philidor in a couple of other over-the-board games. I would still consider myself mainly a Caricom player, but against people who I have played multiple times, I like to just change it up. I don't want to play the same opening a billion times against the same people. And in this case, so this is my 5th time playing Nick, and it's time for me to change it up. So I play the Philidor with the perk move order, or the Pirch. And yeah, so I played e5, and I was sort of expecting him to play knight f3 and keep the tension, but he did what everyone else also does, which is trade on e5 and then trade queens. And I'm like, I have mixed feelings about this, because on one hand, like, I'm very comfortable in this because everyone does it, and I've played strong players, Matthew Rebes and Carl DeMelt, and have not lost in this position, so I know that this is okay. And I'm very comfortable, but at the same time, like, man, I really wanted to checkmate. I really wanted to attack this game, but now with my king in the center, that's a bit unlikely, but I did attack nonetheless. He played bishop c4. In the other 2 games, my opponents went bishop g5. I think bishop c4 is actually better and is more challenging. At the very least, I see it less. So, I mean, I'm sure it's all equal. So bishop b4, and he plays bishop d2. So we both develop our bishops. But now, with his bishop developing on d2, I can actually play king e7 and defend my f7 pawn now. If he did take on f7, it's a little bit dangerous because you're grabbing a pawn when you're not fully developed. So I could go king e7 or rook f8 more likely, or double his pawns first and then do one of those moves. So white can take that pawn, but is a bit dangerous, so they have to really know what they're doing. But as bishop d2, now I defend my pawn. And and of course, if you take the pawn on f7, the e4 pawn is hanging most critically. So now with bishop d2, the e4 pawn is not hanging. So he plays f3, and I decided to go for a more positional game, even more so now, trade more pieces, and play bishop e6. Enticing him to trade, and I do an in-between move. I take on c3, so then I can give him this bad bishop while I have 2 knights. So I have the knight pair, he has a bishop and knight, and in an ideal world, I'm going to trade off my knight for his knight, and then it's going to be good knight versus bad bishop. That's one of the goals, right? Because knights can move around a lot more, and knights are a lot better than bishops. I will admit. Some people will disagree. Some haters will disagree, but I'm definitely very comfortable having the knight. I'd much rather have a knight versus a bishop in many cases. So he plays knight h3, which is kind of interesting. It's definitely hard to figure out where this knight wants to go. Like, does it want to go to e2 and then to c3 eventually? Maybe, actually. But really, I think like white's position is not very harmonious. Like white needs to solve where this bishop actually wants to go and needs to solve where this knight actually wants to go. And if they figure that out, white has no issues. But white still has a couple questions to figure out in how they want to develop. So my opponent goes, Nick goes knight h3. And I thought about playing c5 immediately, but I couldn't see any justification. And there's another move like, I'm trying to think. There's some cool tactics for him that he could potentially do. Like for example, okay, just for illustrative effect, like if I play c5 and he goes knight g5 check, and after king d6, okay, well there's a fork immediately. How am I supposed to? Okay, I think I figured it out. Yeah, let's say like knight h5, for example, then check here, then there's bishop e5 check, deflecting my king to win the rook in the corner. There are potentially tactics like that, although it looks like it's hard to blunder. As you can tell, you have to play really weird moves to blunder that. But I decided to go h6 just to, the knight coming to g5 looked pretty annoying to me, so I just played h6. He centralized his rook. He actually did not castle, which is very interesting. I think, when you see that your opponent's king is in the center, you kind of want to keep your king in the center too, because, in the end game, the king is more useful in the center of the board. So instead of castling, he goes rook d1, controlling the open file. But right now, there are no infiltration squares. All the way from d4 to d8, everything is covered. He cannot infiltrate. So I'm not worried. The only thing I'm worried about is if he doubles on the open file. That can be a bit dangerous. I have to be careful about the tempo. Like if I have an idea, can he counteract that idea by doubling up? And if so, what is my response? And if my response is bad, I have to change my plan. So I calculated if I play c5 and b5 and knight c6, am I going to be okay? And I think so. I think the answer is yes. So I do play c5. And one of the things I was thinking about is if he goes king e2 and I play knight c6, he plays rook d2, and I play b5, and if he doubles up, I have a couple options. Most prudently, I can just play knight d4 check and clog the open file. Or I can put my rooks in the open file, and we can trade everything, which is also fine. So I thought that was the most prudent thing to do. And we did trade both pairs of rooks. I would be a little bit sad because I think it's going to be harder to win this game if I have no rooks. If we both don't have any rooks, I think it's going to be a bit harder. This move is interesting because then I can take with the d pawn, and we can get some imbalance in the pawn structure. Although I don't like how this d6 square is still very juicy, like c3 and then takes, and then he can start maybe giving me a check. Although it looks like my king is pretty safe with my knight on f6, so maybe it's not too concerning. But yeah, this is a potential weakness, and we do have this pawn imbalance, so there's still definitely some play left in the position, which I'm happy about. So I thought the most challenging way for him to play is to potentially double up as fast as possible. But after I played c5, he played knight f2. And I was not worried about this. He's going to get his knight to d3, and I'm going to meet it with knight d7, which is what happens in the game. I play b5, he plays g3, or b3, which I think it's a bit strange. I think he was worried about a couple things. One, if b5, he wants to potentially meet that move with bishop b2. So maybe that was one of the ideas. And the other idea is that after he wants to discourage c4. He wants to discourage c4 by having a pawn control that square. But ultimately, I think this is a waste of a move. This is slow. This seems very slow, which, it feels like you can do a slow move in this queenless middle game, but you can get in trouble real fast. And now, if you do ever take on d4, this c pawn is going to be a backwards pawn, which can definitely become a weakness. I play knight c6, he plays knight d3, and now And also, like, if you just play knight d3 immediately, I cannot play knight c6. Or, yeah, I cannot play knight c6 because the c5 pawn hangs. And I can't play c4 because the e5 pawn hangs. Although, admittedly, b4 does deflect pretty well. I did not realize how well d4 deflects the defense of the knight. So, okay. Okay, actually, yeah. Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that c4 wins the game. For black here. I'm trying to think if there's anything they can do to get out of it. Yeah, I guess you could just go bishop d4. And yeah, this looks totally fine. I mean, black is up a pawn at the end, or white is up a pawn at the end of the day. So, yeah, and if like rook d8, then I'm not really scared. You can just take this pawn. So, okay. So yeah, so maybe he was scared of c4 and then b4, but it's not winning for me. So he plays b3, but it seems too slow. And now I play knight c6, and he plays knight d3. I drop my knight back, and then maybe I'll play f6. Maybe I'll play f5. Maybe I'll just like chill and not move my f pawn at all, and I'm just using my knight defensively. And now he didn't double up on the open file. So what was the point of rook d1 if you're not doubling up your rook there? Like, if you're not doing something with the rook on d1, then that was a waste of a move. He plays king e2, and now I play rook hc8. I'm not putting my rook on the d file. No, I am preparing queenside play. I'm going to play a4, a5, open up the a file. I'm x-raying the undefended bishop on c3 and the undefended pawn on c2. I got ideas cooking, and he's got to deal with these problems. I'm asking some questions. He plays f4. So he's saying, okay, you're going all in on the queen side. I'm going to strike back in the center. What you going to do when they come for you? And I play d4, knight d4 check. And, you know, and I'm attacking c2 now. And if you go king d2, I have a couple of ideas. One thing I could potentially do is play f6 and solidify my center first. Or I could also play knight f6, just attacking this e4 pawn. So now his king is too far away to defend it. Although now he could go back here. Oh, but then there's a check, yeah. So I could go knight back to f6 for sure. Because if you take my pawn, then I take your pawn. And after this, there's a fork. So I could do that. And if knight f6, rook h e1, then maybe I can do something else. I can also just play c4 now. And so now if bishop takes, pawn takes, and yeah, I'm breaking through here. If you go knight b5, I could go knight b4, that could go knight b6 potentially. And this is complicated, imbalanced, but this is just the way I like it. I don't have to go c4 as well. I could go knight b6 first, and then c4 later, or maybe a5, and then, you know, a5 after king e2. But I felt very, very comfortable. I think his piece configuration is a bit messed up, a bit sloppy, a bit confusing. Maybe not knight b6 now, because this pawn does hang with the knight. So maybe not the best, but I don't know. I could go either way on this. So I play knight d4 check, and he should probably not take this knight. Probably not. He probably just needs to play king e2 or king d2, and just like, you know, it's just a complicated position, but I don't think it's clear that black has an advantage. But he takes. So I asked him a tough question, and he gives the wrong answer. He takes, and now bam, backwards pawn. So now my genius move, me moving my rook from h8 to c8, looks extremely smart now. Because now I'm attacking this pawn, he goes rook c1, and I think for about 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes on a rook c3. Now he can never push his pawn forward. I'm going to double up my pawn, double up my rooks. And here, one of the main things I was calculating was king d2, rook d8, rook ac8, knight b5, to trying to go knight d5 to attack on e4. I decided that if knight b5, I have a couple options. One thing I could do is actually play knight f6 here to attack this pawn. And then if he defends it with rook e4, I can play knight g4, and if h3, I can play knight e4, and then I'm going to play a5 next, and life is looking very, very good here. After rook h e1, I can also play a5 now to force the knight back, and then play knight g4. That's also fine as well, I think, and because my knight guards a d5, so I don't have to worry about knight d5, and then takes. That does admittedly look pretty annoying here because my b5 pawn also hangs. So I actually have to be very, very careful. I also have just this move. E takes f4, and then I can play g5 and f6 afterwards. That also seems totally fine to me, because then after knight d5, I can either retreat or probably retreat, to be honest. Probably retreat. And then I can play f5 next to try to undermine the knight's defense. And life is pretty good. Yeah, if king d3, then I could potentially consider f5, and if takes, then I could take, and if takes, then I can go takes. So yeah, that's good. And one of the other things I was calculating, after king d2, double up, knight b5. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there was anything else. I think that was one of the main things I was calculating, so I thought for a while there. But after rook c3, he plays g3. So now he's saying that, okay, now he can move his knight without having to worry about me taking on f4. But man, that is just passive, not massive. You know, that is just like, you know, I really feel like he's taking this not so seriously. One thing that is nice for me though is that like he cannot move his knight to b5 immediately because of check and me taking the e4 pawn. So he has to consider that at least. Like if it's a pawn sacrifice, he has to be ready for that. He plays g3 though, which seems crazy to me. You know, he probably does not want to take on e5 because of check or of takes, and then after takes, I can either take with the king or go rook d3 check and rook takes d4. Probably take with the king, or maybe just double up first and then take with the king, or something like that. And this is a pretty comfortable position for black, for sure. But instead he goes g3, I double up, he goes king d2, I play knight f6, and, you know, it really is not a good option for him. If he does either now or later go f5, I am super happy. Now this target on e4, I have a target on e4 and a target on c2, and I don't think it's going to be easy to defend both of them. Like after rook e1, I could go knight g4, and after h3, I'm going to go knight e3, and now I'm going to win this pawn on c2 no matter what. Knight b5, a5, and it's simply winning for me. So that's why I play knight f6, and he surprised me a little bit by playing the move knight f2, just because it's so passive. And I found this really nice combination of moves to finish off the game here. I played rook f3. If he plays king e2, I'm going to play rook c3. So I doubled up on the third rank, which is hilarious. And if he tries to play knight d3 to disconnect my rooks from each other, this is one of the things I had to calculate, 5 moves in advance to make sure I'm not losing. Well, now I can play rook d3, or rook e3 check. And if you go king f2 or king e2, I play knight takes e4 check. And I'm just getting in with all my pieces, and life is pretty good. If you go king e1, then there's a fork, and if you go king f2, then after check and After, if you go to the back rank, I can take the knight and then go check. And then if you go to G2, then I can go check and then take this. Oh, actually, no, I can't do that. My knight's hanging. Yeah, oops. Yeah, I gotta be careful. Point is, it's winning. That is the point. So instead of king e2, he goes rook f1, but I can take on f2, take on e4, and now I am up a pawn, but more importantly, I have all the activity in the world. My two center pawns are very powerful. He goes king e2, I go d3, he goes king d2 to defend his rook on c1 because the pawn was pinned, and then I just trade, centralize my king a little bit, and now we freeze his queenside pawns with the move b4. We freeze his kingside pawns with the move h5. So if he goes g5, I'm going to go f5, and if he takes en passant, eventually he's going to run out of king moves, and I'm just going to push my pawn to victory, or pawn moves. He's going to run out of pawn moves. And then he took on h5, so I just went f5, and now he went king e2, I just pushed e3, and he resigned. Simply nothing to do. If you go forward with your king, I'm going to go forward with my king, and I'm going to push my pawn and promote. If you go back with your king, I'll go forward with my king anyway, so no matter what he's going to do, I can always use one of my pawns as a tempo to force his king to move out of the way. And that was the game. So first two rounds, I am 2-0. And I'm looking to win this quad. I gotta beat Kevin Andrew, John Francis Kennedy. I think he's Indian, so we call him the Indian JFK. I gotta beat him the next round to try to win this quad and gain some elo points. You know, everyone I'm playing, like this, Nick is about 150. 170 rating points below me. Max was 100 points. So if I can beat the Indian JFK, who's like around 1850, 1860, I should be going up 15 points, 20 points, getting closer to the mid 1900s, and from there getting to 2000. So I'm hoping to win this next game as well, win the quad, win $50. The entry fee was 20. With that being said, I'm going to hit the game review, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.